Hello again, everybody. I do hope you're all doing very well today. I'm Professor Ganache and this is Being Prepared with Professor Ganache. For the Professor Ganache, did you know this time? Did you know that in some parts of the world there are people that enjoy hatching a certain kind of bird as a hobby before letting it fly away? It's a unique little bird called a plan. They produce a lot of eggs that need very little care, so are quite easy to look after. They say it helps them feel more in control of their day after they've hatched one and seen it fly away to start its life. Plus there's been more me cries noticed recently, so be careful if a friend or someone you know starts talking or acting strangely. Be sure to check with an adult first before reporting them though, as they may just be joking with you. Plus there's a penalty in place if you bother them for a false alarm. Today's being of the day is actually quite similar to one of our last beings of the day, the mascot. These are a certain type of mascot though, called hummans. Hummans can be found anywhere that has decent cover as they are quite shy and scare easily. No one is entirely sure what a humman is, but they are big fans of humans. In the same way that there are mascots of characters you like from media like Sister and the Seesaws, Pure Congregate, and Mace Attorney, these fellows like humanity so much they wear suits depicting them. Their suits are very big, making them taller than any adult. While showing how much they love you, it also makes them a bit clumsy with those big old gloves and shoes of theirs. Don't be afraid if one approaches you or suddenly appears around a tree or corner in a back alley. Hummans are friendly and love to talk. They are a little silly sometimes. They are very wobbly, which is probably why they are holding onto trees and walls so often. Plus their language skills aren't as good as yours or mine. So do be understanding and patient if they take a little time trying to get their point across. Hummans also get lost very easily. They always have a rope around an ankle so they can always find their way home. If there's one thing hummans like more than humans, it's home. Home is the nicest and safest place for everyone after all. No one has seen a humman without their suit on, and I've not seen any reports or information on if they've been asked what they look like. I can only assume they look a little different from you and your friends if they feel they need to wear a suit to represent how you look. While mascots are people in character outfits employed to entertain people, hummans are in people outfits also out to entertain people, but not because they are employed just for fun. Do you remember your parents, guardians, carers or housemasters warning you not to talk to strangers, and about not accepting gifts or getting into strangers' cars? Well, while hummans are lots of fun to talk to, it's safest to stay outside in the open where you can be seen by grown-ups or friends when talking to one. Hummans love their houses and are always wanting help to find it again and show it off to their new friends, but you can become lost very easily wandering away with them. It's better in general to not follow them and stay where you first met them, provided it's safe. Be polite but firm if they insist. Apparently their house doesn't smell very good either, but don't tease them about that. People can't help their house or family scent the same way you can't help yours. So all in all, hummans are interesting and different, friendly fellows who are easy to get along with, but can be a bit bossy on trying to get you to go home with them. As long as you stay in sight of someone responsible, you should have no trouble talking to your new friend. Speaking of friends, now's the time to take a moment to talk about what we've been learning about hummans to your friend or designated life and learning partner. We've had some lovely, non-paper made letters from people, and it's really warmed my little heart that people are finding this broadcast useful and entertaining. We have a letter from someone called Puscab, who says,
Dear Professor G. Nash, I love our show.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm writing to ask if you're a mouse or a big rat. Love your best fan, Puscab.
There are many differences between mice and rats, Puscab. With rats it depends largely on the type, as you can have ones with big ears or small ears, and pointy or blunt noses. Most mice have smaller heads and feet, with pointy noses and large ears. They are also much smaller and lighter than rats. Rats can weigh 20 times that of a little mouse. So to answer your question, thank you so much for watching and writing in. This one is from someone calling themselves Steve, no surname, and it reads,
Look out behind you. It's a giant piece of cheese.
Well, now I don't see any cheese anywhere around here, Stephen. I think you just played a trick on me. I've certainly received a few messages talking about cheese, but I suppose I should address that in the next broadcasts, did you know? And finally, this one doesn't have a name attached.
Hey Gonash, my friend recently walked off with a mascot and I haven't heard from them in a few days. You are the first one I've told Sue. What should I do?
Well, I'm sure by now people are looking for them. Be sure to let them know what you told me first. If you're going to look for them yourself, going to where you last saw the two of them and exploring any areas around it that may host birthday parties could be a good start. Normally I'd suggest contacting the authorities, but given it's about mascots, I think they may just end up blacklisting your name for pestering them. There was the trained professional mascot wrangler from Kind O Foods, but they've not been answering the phone for a while now. With any luck, your friend has simply been invited to accompany the mascot or help them find a party they were on their way to and is having a wonderful time as a reward. Phew, learning sure can take it out of you, can't it? I hope this was a funner time for you as it was for me, and you come away knowing a little bit more about the world. Thank you for spending this time with me. Today's episode is brought to you by a new game coming out called Alright 5 Alive. It's a 5-player cooperative game where you play the role of naughty zombies attempting to reach the final 5 survivors. I don't quite know if that's suitable for the lower of our intended age rating, but this couldn't have been possible without them. That about wraps up this broadcast. I hope you all have a lovely rest of the week, and I'll see you again when we have the funding to produce another one.
Welcome to another informative Kind O Foods internal broadcast about entities you already know about. This is middle management.
Skip out.
I am just back from what is hopefully the last of the hearings about my acknowledging the paperwork on the floor in the previous mascots video. I was able to convince the board that I was merely acknowledging the disallowance of acknowledging them, rather than acknowledging them directly. One can only hope that this explanation doesn't result in more hearings. With me, again, is intern
Bartolic.
Please stop trying to extract the algae from that screen over there. There have been reports of odder than usual behavior in animals as of late. It has not been fully determined why this is. Viruses, bacteria, and anything biological has been ruled out. Exercise greater caution around animals and the more rigorous of our employees. Also in the news, an actual book has been circulating more and more recently. A printed one. With words. Something extremely illegal now. Executive themselves have stated that anyone found in possession of this book will be severely reprimanded. And also he'd like it loaned to him so he can see what all the fuss is about. This is the last week of frantic, so the search locations from Tuesday to 6th day are the giant dead oak tree, stone forest, and the alleys. Expect the usual residents' resistance from the giant dead oak tree, but there have been Haman sightings reported in both stone forest and in the alleys, presumably due to their densely packed buildings allowing it to lurk undetected. Given how some encounters with Hamans can go, we are deploying the Starling clue to the two latter locations. Starlings make sure they have at least 2 plotters, 5 grabbers and 2 sluggers for self-defense and or umbilical capture if necessary. Don't forget the nets. Entity. Haman's cluster. Red level. Pitchfork. Semi-slug. Maggot leech. Hamans are not mascots. Intern. This one is yours, apparently.
Hamans are great big humans that will make terrible movies about you and only use the same 5 actors they always use to play you all at once. Run away, run from the Hamans. They will produce you and crack your chitinous outer layers. Send in the secret man with gun unit.
That's enough. Intern, go and stand, or float, or whatever it is you do, over there. Extract more of that algae, why don't you? I can only humbly apologize for the intern. I don't have any excuses. Getting this underway once more. Information. The Haman is a rare entity that is not well understood. They can be found in any area that supports other wildlife and has ample cover. The most common areas being forests and the alleys. Haman is how they are referred to collectively as a clutch. And that designation is also referring to the most safely encountered component. A full Haman system is made up of 3 distinct components. The Haman, the lure, the house, the trap, the cord, the umbilical. The Haman brings people or other organics inside the house, which then processes them before transferring some of the energy via the cord back into the Haman. This fuels it to once again toddle out and try to make friends. No Haman has ever been documented as having any internal organs. They cannot survive for long if separated from the other components, relying entirely on the trap and umbilical. While the house and cord cannot be reasoned with, encounters with a Haman section rarely led to injury or fatality if handled by protocol and common sense. The protocol is as follows. Do not follow a Haman. Haman. Entity component. Haman. The lure. Threat level. Pitchfork. Information. This section is the most commonly encountered and sociable. A Haman can be identified by their large human costume they wear. A Haman lure generally stands between 8 to 10 foot, 2.4 to 3 meters tall. The costume features 2 large, bulging eyes with static, unseeing button-like pupils, an indented mouth leading nowhere, and the approximately typical amount of limbs found attached to a human. Different lures wear differing outfits as part of their costume. The most commonly observed are overalls over a short-sleeved shirt, comically huge shoes, and meaty, boneless-looking gloves. Their skin, hair, flesh, and clothing all consist of the same sweating, greasy skin-like material with visible stitching between the sections. Haman feature a long vein-covered tube trailing off behind them from the back of one leg. This is the umbilical, which connects them to the house, the trap, which doubles as a dwelling for the Haman. Lures, being unable to sustain themselves without being connected to the house trap, are considered on technicality to not be truly alive as a separate entity, being akin to a limb. Known for living in a vaguely human-shaped house, using trees, sharp turns in the alleys or other cover to watch for potential conversational ambushes, A lilting manner of speech, with pitch and speed fluctuating often, repeating various go-to phrases regardless of context, referring to themselves as humans a suspicious amount of times per conversation, badly employing social etiquette at inappropriate times, misusing tense and swapping words, being possibly human, reacting to the injuries of others with unfeigned concern and offers of assistance, incapable of feeling pain, hunger, or potentially any physical interaction. This was discovered after a grabber had in our long conversation with a lure that had been recently mauled and had their insides partially eaten. Unaffected by the house trap, presumably due to the greasy sweat-like substance they were always coated in. No concept of personal space, ultimately attempting to convince anything it considers alive, which may include certain inanimate objects, to follow them. Being very insistent. Appearing to be ignorant of their own situation and that their other components are alive. Believing their attempts at hospitality are genuine. Not defending itself if attacked. Despite their assertions, they are, in fact, most likely not human. Entity component. House. The trap. Threat level. Semi-slug. A large, flesh-like structure found on the other end of the umbilical. Unlike the lure, this component appears to have no empathy whatsoever. It has not yet been determined if it is simply a large digestive maze organ or if it is sentient or able to communicate. Anyone that has discovered the answer has been lost to its former aspect. Houses are always located in such a place that they would be difficult to see from a distance. Do not approach if you think there may be a house trap nearby. By the time you make visual contact with it, it will be too late. Information. The outside is almost the same material as the lure, though shows signs of C-ROSA development missing on the lure. The internal isn't well documented, but it is thought to be made up of a soft, leathery mucosa stretched over submucosa and subxerose. There is no lock on the facsimile of a door. It has no method with which to physically hold entities within itself if the prey doesn't allow it. Despite this, it doesn't seem to have a need to. Only the lure and umbilical have been seen exiting the trap. Constantly produces pheromones within a small radius of itself, the influence of which becoming weaker and less effective the further away from the source it is. These pheromones have been described as smelling something akin to artificial flowers trying to mask an undertone of the odor of a butcher's shop on a hot day. Breaks down anything inside itself slowly over time. An apparently pleasurable experience given nothing but the Haman lure has been seen leaving it. Who is unaffected by this, freely enters and leaves as it pleases, and utilizes it as a dwelling. Has no known way of defending itself other than the toughness of its hide and the pheromones it produces. Cannot survive without a cord umbilical, as it is required for processing nutrimental slurry into distributable energy. Moves slowly by way of cilia on the base. Entity component. Cord, the umbilical. Threat level. Maggot leech. The often overlooked connective tissue component of the Haman collective clutch. Information. Connects the lure and trap components together. Has microscopic folds along its unpleasantly pulsing vein-ridden length that allow it to change length as needed. It is unknown what the true length of an umbilical is. They've even seen trailing behind a Haman lure for several miles around trees. Despite this, they don't appear to have over a mile in length when the lure is returning to the house. Possibly, they retract into the trap. Carries no impulses or instructions between the other components, being only responsible for distributing nutrients and energy from the trap to the lure, and possibly preventing the lure from getting lost. The most integral part of the overall organism. It has been theorized that it may be the most individually alive section of the organism. Can live independently away from both the lure and the trap. Appears to have the highest intelligence and survival instinct of the other components despite being non-communicative. The clutch's entire survival instincts are focused squarely into this component. will drain nutrients from a dead or dying house to keep the Haman functional for long enough to find another house to connect to and move in with. If no suitable trap is found to relocate to, an umbilical will drain the Haman dry. Detach themselves then locomote via whipping and rolling movements. A disconnected umbilical is extremely dangerous and aggressive. It is the most physically dangerous this collective entity can be, giving rise to the maggot and leech threat levels. Umbilicals will wrap themselves around any animals it finds to hitch a ride on them as they panic before draining them too. Do not allow an umbilical to approach or attach to you under any circumstances. If you are lucky, you may just lose a limb or have all nutritional and congealed sap drained from your CMVS, company-mandated vascular system. However, if you're less lucky and a member of your crew has the umbilical burrow its way into them and you have no way to quickly set it on fire, consider fleeing as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Or take notes. Umbilical-led victims may experience side effects such as slight pressure in their limbs, paralysis, feeling the cord expanding into each major limb to puppeteer them, panic, hunger, hopelessness and, if they are slightly less unlucky, the first sweet, licking tongue of fire as they are incinerated by a fellow member of their crew for their own good. This has thankfully only happened once. We are not sure what else could have happened if Plotter hadn't been promptly set aflame. They were lucky I had brought a can of spray cheese-like substance and a lighter with me just in case they needed to be set on fire. They were a good asset, and plotted with the rest of them. Here's to you, Plotter. We know that Haman clutches probably reproduce asexually. But there are theories that if a loose umbilical finds a suitable host, well, it doesn't bear thinking about. It would be easy to write off the lure as being nothing but a means for the trap to gain sustenance by capturing prey, but from extensive questioning and interaction, we have concluded that the lure has their own motives separate from their other sections. Their examples of empathy also seem genuine, if sometimes misplaced. They lure people into the house trap not for sustenance, but for companionship and in an earnest bid to help them. Hamans don't understand or realize that the house is actively processing their new friends over time while clouding their mind with pleasure to keep them in place. If an unfamiliar Haman discovers you, do be polite. Try to ascertain your distance from their house via surreptitious glances at the thickness and texture of the cord umbilical. Remain civil. Keep a safe but respectable distance from the Haman, moving away with cause it to follow. Keep responses short and simple. Agree with the Haman if it is safe to do so. Offer condolences along with a firm no if the Haman attempts to win your sympathies in order to have you visit their house. If it cannot be otherwise convinced to leave, agree to follow it. Thank them for their concern if they display something representing empathy. It may just be a learned response, but better polite than sorry. Don't follow it. Approach the Haman. Argue with the Haman, especially if it asserts that it is human. Poke it. Shout at the Haman. Pull on the umbilical. Tempt to tell it that it is a lure. They are better off and will remain more agreeable not knowing. Follow it. If meeting up with a previously agreeable Haman lure kind of food associate, do let the designated plotters distract the Haman lure via conversation out of sight lines and the pheromone effect range of the house. Direct grabbers and sluggers to go around the lure undetected and to follow the cord. Have grabbers take point and to indicate when they are close to the trap to save the sluggers from being intoxicated by the pheromones. Bring your company-issued bug net for sluggers to capture any stray cord umbilicals that may emerge. Search the house, preferably after checking masks are at least 48% functional. Bring the falsified non-paper search warrant written in extra large, clear font in case of discovery. Harvest what meat-like substances you can from the Fox Furniture for Kindo Foods line of munchies. The best yields are the SETI,
Rudmal, Sladrocka,
and
Betanstad.
Bring whatever remains you find within the trap with you to submit to
Drug Labs R&D
for identification and potential implementation. Tonight is mandatory movie monitoring Moon Day. The synopsis is as follows. B. Roger. A sewer repair worker discovers Bettany, an above-average-looking woman female at a pipe dreamers anonymous meeting. Instantly falling in love. B. Roger ends up lying to Bettany that they're actually a pipe layer. Bettany is intrigued by this, and after a few dates, it looks like it's starting to get serious. B. Roger is still unsure how to break the news to Bettany that they are in fact not a pipe layer. However, B. Roger can't bring themselves to admit their terrible lie, even at the behest of their best friend, Snagner, the golf ball. Tragedy strikes when Bettany's parents need new pipelines installed into their third outhouse, leading Bettany to discover that B. Roger isn't a pipe layer, immediately dumping them. A montage of B. Roger and Bettany sulking and singing at the various orbiting moons goes on for 20 minutes. After having their life reaffirmed by their old mentor, the fast food bellboy, B. Roger, with a bit of help from Snagner, manages to lay some pipe which wins back Bettany's heart. Be sure to arrive in time for the climatic pipe-laying scene. Upper management has urged me to remind you that me cries are able to get into and through places that would seem otherwise impossible. We have no idea how they are able to accomplish these feats, but they appear to operate on the condition that they are not being observed in any way. This includes getting through high-security corridors full of traps, locked doors, keyholes, and even getting past scaremans. With the amount of cameras installed in Kindo Foods, it's a wonder any can get in at all, even if they climbed in through the designated restroom or the bunker. On the same subject, a decision has finally been made in for the case of what to do with me cries. It seems that shoot the me cry in the head has won out. So be sure to fire indiscriminately at any co-worker you deem to be acting abnormally. This should go without saying, but to remind you, the threat levels are not indicative to the sort of entities you may encounter in a literal sense during the deployment. Being sent to an area that has had threat level mole activity does not necessarily mean that you will encounter a killer mole. Use some common sense, though around here I suppose it isn't all that common. And now, 5 words from General Discomfort.
Milk for the skeleton crew.
Thank you. And now, more words from Director
Gerbley.
Ladies, gentlemen, and Annalita of all ages, it's a historic day. We have partnered with one of our biggest rivals, Organic Slop, to bring a brand new type of food to the world, never before seen. Introducing meat eggs. Tired of having to eat eggs and meat-like substances separately? Well, no more. Now you can enjoy the great sensation of cracking open calcium carbonate-surrounded ovums and be rewarded with meat-like substance slopping right out. It even catches the egg shards to add a healthful crunch. Add it to your breakfast, surprise business guests. Feed it to your pets. Feed your pets to it. Use it to oil and wax your car. Wondering where these never-seen-before miracle eggs come from? Well, our answer to you is the same to the Ministry Board of Health. Shut up. That's none of your damn business. Now quit lollygagging and start trolley-flagging. Director Gerksley, out.
And there you have it. That's all we have time for. This is middle management
Skip out.
reminding you to wipe at least 2 of your hands before trying to enter the non-fake company building. If your company-mandated fingerprint isn't recognized on the 11th attempt, security protocols will be initiated and there is no way to turn them off, potentially leading it to exterminate everything in the building.